I'd like to welcome everybody and say thank you for joining us here on this very special occasion, which is the first yahrzeit of our beloved friend and brother, fellow Talmud, right? Servant of God at the highest level, Eliyahu Zalman ben Yisachar Halevi. We would like to speak in his praise and to remember him fondly for all the things that he meant to all of us, starting with his immediate blood family, his older brother, who's standing to my right now, his name Aaron, or Harry Law, and asking a number of people from the community that were involved and learned with him and lived with him and took care of the yeshiva with him and spent precious hours that he was here for the 2.25 years he was with us. We like to leave some memories behind while they're still pretty fresh in our memory and remember him on his first yahrzeit. So I'll turn the microphone in the beginning of our songs of praise for a great and beloved friend to Harry Aaron Law, the older brother of Eliyahu.
Thank you. You'll notice that I have a computer in front of me. It's not that I just picked up a program. It's I put a lot of my thoughts together and tried to do it in an organized fashion. And the only way I can do that successfully is to actually put it down to paper. And after I got done putting it down to paper at 2 a.m, I found that I couldn't read my own notes. So I spent some time and I just typed it all out. Because there's some things I want to tell you about. You are all been his friends, but you don't know his history. So I do have a few things I want to say. But first, Lenny, I told you I was coming to Israel. The least you could have been done is to be here for me.
Yes.
But you're not here, but you are here. You're always in my heart. So in your honor, you always started off with a joke. So the joke can't be new. It has to be old. It had to be told at least 500 times. So what do you name a dog that has no legs? You name him Cigarette, put a leash on him, and take him for a drag. Okay, ba-boom. That's Lenny's joke. And now we can go forward. All right. Since you don't know Lenny before he came to the yeshiva, I want to give you a glimpse of who he was. There's many things, and I'm going to try and be fairly brief, but give you a good overview. When Lenny was a teenager, my father and brother had an auto repair shop. On Saturdays, Lenny, being a teenager, would go there to help, or his idea of what help really is. All right? So, because he had no automobile repair knowledge, they taught him how to do a simple oil change. They thought that he can't do much damage just changing somebody's oil. So they taught him how, and everything was going along fine. And one day they pointed to a car and asked him to change the oil. He said, no problem. He gets on the ground, gets underneath the car, and he begins his task. Meanwhile, my other brother Joel and my father, they go about their business in the garage, working on other cars and any other business that they needed to. Well, after a while, my father looked around and he noticed he didn't see Lenny. So he walked over to the garage bay where he was working, and he said, oh, he's under the car working. Okay, at least he's busy. And he went away. A while later, my father looks around and he said, I don't see Lenny. That oil change should have been done long ago. And he looked, and there's a pair of legs still hanging out from underneath the car. And he grabs his boots and he starts shaking them and pulling them out at the same time. He said, are you sleeping under there? And with the tool in his wrench, still on the bolt, he says, no, I'm working. So he got pulled out, and he's trying to focus because he couldn't get the little sleepers out of his eyes. He couldn't get his eyes open. So that was one instance of where hands go up in the air, my father turns around, shakes his head, and off he goes. And Lenny just started his giggling, and started his laughing, and went about his business. Typical Lenny. That's how he was. So when he'd go to work, he'd be the sleeper. It was many times he'd be sleeping underneath the car. He even slept under a car one time when he was leaning over the hood trying to change an air filter. Out cold. That's how Lenny was. So that's when he was a teenager. On one particular day in that garage, he was being more of a nudge than normal. And if you know him, he can be a nudge. So my father was exasperated one day, and he looked him square in the eye and said, "How much do you charge to haunt a house?" And without missing a beat, Lenny said, "How many rooms?" My father just looked at him and said, 6. And Lenny, not missing a beat, said, "With bath?" Again, hands up in the air. My father shook his head and walked away. We thought that aggravated my father, but he told that joke for years. He told that instance for years, and he laughed till he cried. That was how Lenny was. Subtle humor. Well, you know him. Subtle humor, and that's how he was. I don't know if you know that Lenny was a musician. When he was in high school, he played a baritone saxophone in a high school jazz band, an instrument he truly loved. He never had one of his own. He always used the school baritone saxophone because they're quite large and very expensive, and we couldn't afford that. I had 2 saxophones myself, a smaller alto and a smaller tenor, which I gave him to use when I had found that I had stopped using it myself. And I'm sure he played it quite a bit over the years. He had it for many years. And they were returned to me just before he came here to Israel. But he was quite a saxophone player as well. I don't know if you knew that he was a musician. This is Lenny. He was that guy. He was the person who come into a room and take command of it just with his presence. He wouldn't have to say a thing. People gravitated to him. He had that magnetism that we all don't have. Special people have that, and they're drawn to him. The magnetism that he showed was kind of like the actor that played Norm in the TV show Cheers. When Norm would come into the room, everybody would yell, "Norm!" and then go about their business. When Lenny came into a room, everybody knew it. Everybody said, "Lenny." And that was just normal, because that's how he was. His personality, he exhumed friendship and caring. And that's what people picked up on, and they really loved him for that. And this is Lenny. Through his life, he rarely ever said that he did not like somebody. If there was someone that he was not fond of, he simply would not put himself in the position to be around that person, if at all possible. This is Lenny. He cared for even that person's feelings enough not to tell them how he felt. As you all know, or at least many of you here, he had a lot of talent to troubleshoot problems and formulate a plan to make necessary repairs. He'd stand there, he'd look at your problem, he'd close his eyes sometimes, possibly, and think, how am I going to do this to himself? And eventually he would speak and he would come up with a plan. He was always amazed that he would find projects that he'd be asked to take care of where people have already done them before, and they would have to be done again, but the correct way. He never saw. He would always do things to the best he could. It had to be right. If you're not going to do it right, why are you going to do it at all? Why waste everybody's time and effort when you could be doing other things? So he would do it right. It would take more time, it would take more energy, but it wouldn't have to be done again. It could be anything from a leak in the sink or to patching a wall. He knew how to do it. He learned how to do a lot of these things because my father was a handyman. My father could repair anything, and at the same time, my father was also a perfectionist. He believed in doing it one way. If you needed to make a hole for a screw or for a bolt, it had to be the right size. Can't be any larger. Everything had to be right. It had to be neat, and it had to be done correctly. This is something that Lenny inherited from my father. I inherited it to a point, but Lenny took it to the nth degree, and everybody always appreciated that. And people he did work for, from what I understand here, they've been very happy with everything he's done. And now they don't know who they're going to go to for new repairs. This was Lenny. In the Law family, Mom and Dad would always impress upon us that family was the most important. Everyone gathered here today has told me how much of a friend Lenny was. The reality is he did not see you as friends. He loved you as family. Maybe not immediate family, but family nonetheless. And now that I think of it, if we're all brothers and sisters, I got to tell you, I never got my Hanukkah gelt. So I'll pick it up on the way out. Okay? So, that being said, I just want to let you know that he was always willing to help you, and you know that. And that's because he was always taught family comes first. And he saw you as family, every one of you. As much as you were thankful for him, he was much more thankful for you. He may not have shown it, but he was. During conversations with him, he would tell me of the many issues that he had to repair. He told me who here did not know how to hold a screwdriver. I know who you are. I know who can't swing a hammer. And I know there are people here that don't even know what a level looks like. This was Lenny. Via Skype, Lenny and I would stay connected literally and figuratively. We would talk about the ongoing trials and tribulations since we last spoke. Also, we would revert back to the jokes, not new ones, but the same old tried and true ones that we've told each other back and forth for many years. Who would laugh at old jokes? Well, the answer is we would. We would laugh until the tears flowed and we couldn't breathe. There were times, of course, when he was down. I would let him say what he needed to say. I would talk it out with him, and if I thought it might help him. But then I would simply put my fingers to my temples, squeeze, squint my eyes, look into the monitor, and say, "Lenny, I'm thinking you a joke." And I would sit here with my eyes squinted and my fingers here, and it would take about 10 seconds. And I'd start hearing the giggle. And then I'd start hearing the laughing. And then I'd open my eyes, and the tears would be coming down. That was Lenny. So here we are, two grown men, Skyping, telling old jokes and jokes that are not jokes, laughing like little kids. This was Lenny. He always spoke with deep devotion of his opportunity of being in Israel. He would light up when he talked about the ongoing of his learning, reconnecting, and of his religious reawakening. There were many things throughout Lenny's life that had to happen to bring Lenny here to Israel to attain a spiritual awakening. And I think it's important for you to hear, because this is a strong part of who he was. I've chosen just to mention some of the high points from his adult life. As you may or may not be aware, Lenny was in the U.S. Army. Had he not returned to Florida after his tour of duty in the Army, he would not have been in the right place to buy boxes and baskets of random motorcycle parts that may or may not have gone together to completely build a 1940s era Harley-Davidson. Had he not built the motorcycle, he would not have been able to sell it later for $5,000 to pay for the commercial divers classes to do the underwater construction work that he did. Had he not taken the diving classes, he may not have been in the right place at the right time to meet his soon-to-be wife, Karen. Had he not met and married Karen, he would not have moved to Wyoming, then California, then Wisconsin. Had he and Karen not separated, he would not have moved back to California or met his true love, Sylvia. Had he not moved back to California, he would not have met Rabbi Sina and been a part of his congregation. Had the combination of meeting Rabbi Sina and finding Sylvia not happened as it did, he would not have moved to Israel. Had he not come to Israel when he did, he may not have met Rabbi Gold. Had he not met Rabbi Gold, he may not have had the opportunity to reconnect with his heritage as he so desired. But the reality is, these things did happen exactly as they needed to, when they needed to. So was this a divine plan, or was this nothing more than random? I have to believe it was the former rather than the latter. Sylvia, you were the light and the true love of his life. You provided him with emotional well-being that he had never had before, and he so deserved. Excuse me. Rabbi Gold, you became his mentor, his teacher, his confidant. He loved you in the yeshiva and what it stands for. After you welcomed me to come to the ceremony of the celebration of life and spending time at this yeshiva, I can only say one thing. I get it. I truly, truly get it. I understand why Lenny was so content with his life. He was fulfilled emotionally and spiritually. What more can there be? I only hope we'll be able to be together again, as we are now family, brought together by my brother, Leonard J., Eliyahu, Zalman, Law, Ben Yisach. Thank you.